Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are working on the block again. We got our new block back from the machine shop. They actually bought me another block. They rebored it, resurfaced it, redid all the work, and they actually did a lot better job. I can just tell, just because when I throw this piston in, I can just drop it in like this, and it's not clanking around like before. So I am feeling a little bit better about this block. Now we still have to go through, measure the pistons again, measure the block. I told them 1.5 to 1.8 clearance. So we'll see. They had the pistons. I brought them pistons with a block, and so there's no reason they shouldn't hit this mark. They're machine shop. They know how to measure. They know how to bore. They know how to finish hone. So we're gonna measure that. Before we get started, I want to give a huge thank you, another big thank you to Jim at 22RE Performance. So he saw my video of me measuring all my clearances. He noticed that I put my ARP rod bolts in the rods after I had the machine work done on those rods. And I guess, I have heard of this before, I didn't know it was such a big deal, but I guess throwing ARP rod bolts in your rods after it's machined will actually throw them out of round. So he is gonna send me, I'm kind of in a hurry, I wanna get this block done like I said, so he actually built me another set of rods with ARPs, machined them all, 100% perfect, and he's overnighting those. I can't thank Jim enough. He has been the biggest help on this motor, getting this thing together. He's got so much info. I don't know a whole lot about like modifying highly modified 22Rs, 20Rs. He's got so much knowledge. He's helping me out with everything. I want to give a huge thank you to you, Jim. If any of you guys need any Toyota parts, like I said, he has a ton of parts, from stock parts, aftermarket parts, high performance parts. He builds engines, heads. He's got I-beam rods, forged pistons. I mean, honestly, about anything you could need for one of these trucks. Go check out 22reperformance.com. All right, guys, I think we are good to go on the block. So we got everything set up, got this bore gauge set up, and we are getting pretty consistent with right about 1.8, 1.9, 2 thousandths clearance, which that is right about where I told them. Maybe a little on the loose side, but I don't know. I'd rather be a little bit loose than a little bit too tight. So we are good to go on the cylinder to piston. Now let's flip it over. Let's check the mains one more time. Let's throw all the main bearings in, torque those caps, make sure those are all good to go. And then we got to check a ring end gap and get some paint on this thing. We are good to go on these rings. We don't need to actually do any grinding on them or shortening. So we are 12 to 18 for the top and second ring. And you can see 15, 13, 14, 13, 15, 15. We are good to go there, right in the middle. And then oil is 15 to 30. And we're at about 25, 24, 26. So we're good to go. Let's get this thing masked off, cleaned up, and ready for some paint. All right guys, we got our timing cover ready to Cerakote, and we got the Cerakote. So this is the same Glacier Black that we did on all the other parts, but this, they actually updated their formula. I'm not sure what they changed. So with this new stuff they got, they recommend one heavy coat just to make sure everything is covered. Just spray until it is covered. You don't need to do 2 coats anymore like the previous version of this stuff. So it's still called the same C7600 Glacier Black, but we just do 1 coat. So we'll get this mixed up, get it in the gun, 1 heavy coat. If you guys want to check out this Glacier Black or any other Cerakote products, head over to cerakoting.com. I'll have a link down in the description box where you can find it. Really, really great products, amazing coatings. They're very, very strong and thin coatings. If you guys have never messed with Cerakote, you got to try it out. cerakoting.com, go check it out. All right guys, our package from 22RE Performance showed up. So he actually sent over a new set of rockers. Mine were a little screwed up, and then the rocker adjusters as well. Mine were all, somehow mine got all pitted out. So we got those. I was missing a rear main housing here, so he sent that over, looking brand new with OEM seal. Here is the rods with ARPs. So we got to pull our bearings out of these rods, get them in these rods, and then we're going to go through and remeasure them, make sure everything with that is good to go. And then one last thing, head dowels. I was missing the head dowels, so we got those. We are ready to go. So one more big thank you to Jim for these rods and all these parts. Big lifesaver. So we can actually get this motor together now. All right guys, all these rods check out perfect. 2.06655, 2.0665655. 655. So we are right where we were before. So we are 100% ready to go. Everything checks out. We got cylinder to pistons good, rod bearings are good, main bearings are good. The one last thing we got to check is the thrust bearing, which we got to do once we get the crank in. We get the thrust bearings in, and then we measure the crank walk, basically how much it moves with a dial indicator. So let's grab our block over here. We painted this yesterday, so it's not cured, but it's hardened up enough to get some work done on it. So we'll have to unmask it, go through, clean everything one last time, clean the cylinders, clean the front, just blow everything off, make sure there's no dirt at all anywhere in this block, and then we can start throwing it together. Oh, and one other thing, guys, this paint I used on the block, which I am actually really liking this paint. No, this is not a sponsorship deal. This is a Eastwood, ceramic black. So this is a 2K. A lot of their chassis paints are just a 1K. This is actually a hardened 2K, so very chemical resistant. It's basically just a black single stage, but it's not like a high gloss. This stuff I did my whole frame with on the Hilux. I did a bunch of parts with this. I really like this paint. Obviously I haven't put it out in the weather and tested that yet as far as durability, but I like the look of it a lot better. I planned on doing just an Omni single stage on this block, but it's a high gloss and it's not gonna match anything else. All my other stuff is powder coated like a matte black or a Cerakote Glacier Black, which is like a matte black as well. So that's why I kind of wanted to do this Eastwood stuff, because it's not super glossy, super shiny. It's gonna match a lot better. So if you guys want to check this paint out, Amazon actually carries it and it's pretty reasonably priced. And you can get it online, have it shipped to you from Amazon. Super easy to buy. I'll drop a link down in the description box if you guys want to check this out. Alright guys, we got these thrusts in. I pulled the cap back off and we are very tight. Like I can barely get that crank to spin with just these bottom two bearings in. So we might have to do a little bit of clearancing. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is pull those out. We're going to put all the caps on and torque them down with lube and make sure everything with the crank itself is turning fine. And then we're going to put the thrust bearings back in. We're going to smack the crank around a little bit just to kind of put everything in its place. And then we're going to try, if it's still super tight, then we're going to have to just sand the front bearings. You don't want to sand or mess with the rear bearings at all because the cranks always kind of push forward from the clutch and flywheel setup. So just to get our clearance, we'll have to just open up these front bearings a little bit. But let's make sure nothing else is causing this tightness before we start sanding bearings. All right guys, we got this thing all together, all oiled up, all lubed up, and we still had no clearance. So took it all apart, cleaned everything, made sure there was no burrs anywhere, made sure everything was spot on. I measured the width of the cap, I measured the width of the block, everything matches up 100%. And right now we have no caps on, we just have the lower bearings in, and we get about half of a tenth of movement there. So I think the only thing we got to do is we're just going to take the front bearing out like I said, and we're going to sand that down till we get about 2/1000 clearance, and then we'll measure the thickness of that, and then we'll sand the top bearing down to the same thickness, and we should have about 2.5 thousandths of movement in that crank. I think the spec is like 0.8 to all the way up to like 8 thou, so it's a very broad spec. So if we're off a little bit, it's not really going to matter. All right, we got that lower thrust bearing sanded down and we got some movement here. So you can see, now this is a different scale. Each of these little marks is 1/1000. I'll move that 0.001. So each notch here is 1 thou, whereas that bore gauge, it was kind of throwing me off because that bore gauge, each notch is 1/10. So we are, you can see, we'll zero that back out after moving it. We're zero there, move the crank, and we are right about 2.5 thou. So we are good to go right there. I'm going to take the upper bearing, measure that, get that sanded to the same width as that bearing, and we should be good to go. Well, there we go, guys. We finally got a bottom end together. I am stoked. This thing is looking amazing. Now, it's gonna look even better once we get on all of our accent colors. We got just our black together. You guys know we got the bronze water pump, oil pump, and then the valve cover with all the bronze and red. The carbs are bronze and black. This thing is gonna look so good. I am so excited to get this completely together, but I'm gonna cut this right now. Got done what I wanted to get done today. So we are gonna pick this up in the next video, and we're gonna complete 1000% complete this motor with the carbs. I even got a header for it, so we're gonna throw that on. We're gonna throw everything together that has to do with the engine except for the distributor, because I'm still waiting for that. So I did order the short DUI distributor. So I think they're like 6 to 8 weeks out. We should have that within a few weeks. We do have that long version, which if we get this thing in the truck and running before we get the new distributor, we have that to kind of run off of till we get the new one. So that is the game plan. We're gonna wrap this up right here. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is one of those moments that makes me so excited, just because with all the setbacks with this block, we finally got one that is machined right and it's gonna work. So I'm stoked. We got this thing together. Next video, like I said, is gonna be even better, putting the head on, putting everything else on this motor. So guys, definitely stay tuned for the next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Why don't you go smash the thumbs up button, comment, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.